Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Families Fly Free podcast. I'm Lynn Mettler, longtime travel journalist and the creator of Families Fly Free, which is my membership that is now going for 5 years plus that helps families with a simple and easy way to always fly and travel for free using travel rewards. So I teach the simple system that I created for my own family that amazingly now has helped almost 1,000 families. So today we are going to talk about major changes that have been happening in 2025 and are going to continue into 2026 in the miles and points travel rewards space and the airline industry. So I'm seeing some of the biggest changes that I've seen throughout the entire time I have been doing miles and points, which stretches back about 10 years. So these changes that we're seeing, and they're in all different areas, they're having a big impact on the way that you may have traditionally collected and used travel rewards. So I really encourage you to listen to this episode in full, where I'm going to share with you what I see changing. And especially, I deal with hundreds of members on a weekly basis. And so I really see in detail what is happening because I hear from different people the experiences that they're having with different cards, different airlines, different banks. And I can collect that information and kind of start to see some trends. So I'm going to share with you what I'm seeing and then what strategies you can take in light of these changes. So, um, Number one, I'm going to start with is card approvals. So, as you probably know, a key to collecting miles and points and using them to fly for free, if you want to do it simply, you do need to involve some travel cards in the mix to do that. That is a key way to make it simple. Um, my system, however, we only use 2 to 3 cards. You just need to have the right cards for you, for your family, and your travel goals in place. And then you can put your system on autopilot once you learn my step-by-step system. But if you're following other systems, I'm really the only person that I'm aware of out there that teaches just a couple of cards and a system that works to fly you free, your whole family, wherever you want to go. Most other people in miles and points, they are generally teaching you to continually open new cards and earn a bonus. And it's earning the bonus that does help us accumulate miles and points more quickly, but it's also in putting your spending on the right cards. I'm a big believer that most people miss that second part. They focus only on the bonuses. And so opening cards all the time to earn the bonus, that is not working so well anymore. Or if you haven't noticed it yet, it's not going to work very well for you, at least currently and going forward in the near future. So the banks are really tightening up on this right now. So I just would say it's an overall bank tightening. And by bank, I mean the issuers of the travel cards. So Chase, Amex, Capital One, Citi, whichever programs you work in. So, for example, we're seeing some tightening where they're no longer allowing you to re-earn a bonus on a card that you've previously held. So some key examples of this that have happened in 2025 are Chase Sapphire Preferred and Chase Sapphire Reserve. So they really tightened the rules, it appears, on these two cards. So even though in the fine print it used to say that you were eligible to get a new Chase Sapphire Preferred or Chase Sapphire Reserve if you hadn't opened either one of those cards and earned a bonus in the last 4 years. So now they've changed the fine print to say that you may not be eligible with that same wording, which seems to be a positive, right? At first I was like, oh, great, maybe they're not going to be so restrictive about if you had earned a bonus on reserve and now you want to apply for preferred and it hasn't been 4 years, maybe they're going to let you do that. And it seems anecdotally they're not. It seems actually they've tightened it up so as they are not really allowing you to earn the bonus on either one if you've ever held either one. Um, I did have an example recently where that wasn't the case, but I would say 9 out of 10, it has been a no. And what they're doing with Chase now is when you apply for one of these cards, they're letting you know before they process a check to your credit if they are willing to issue you this bonus or not. So they might say, you can get this reserve card, but we're not willing to give you the bonus on it. So it's not to say that you couldn't get the card if you wanted the perks and benefits of the card itself, but they're really tightening up on how many bonuses you can earn. So that would be a good example of a tightening where we were hoping it might be a loosening. And we're just seeing this kind of more once in a lifetime bonus activity happening more often, where they really only want to give you the bonus once ever on a particular card. So if you've previously held it, probably you're not going to be able to get it again. So these are things you need to keep in the back of your mind as you're applying for things. You want to be careful and selective about what you're applying for and what you are not keeping any longer. So also a trend I'm seeing here with this tightening is the banks are just not allowing you to open as many cards overall. So these people, like I've literally seen people that had 40 cards. Holy cow, right? I would never in a million years advocate that. I even see people, more frequently, that was kind of a one-off, but with 20 cards in their wallet, that is not such an uncommon thing to see. Um, and I find that there's a few people who can do that and do that well. That is not how I personally like to do things, because I'm trying to help people make travel rewards simple and not overwhelming. And when you start getting into the territory of 10 plus cards, it starts getting very confusing. And if you're like me, right? And you have a family at home, maybe you're caring for aging parents, maybe you run your own business, maybe you have a full-time job. I mean, this is a busy time of life. And so trying to juggle 20 travel cards and their different perks and redemptions and bonuses and make sure you're paying them on time and all that, that is not a good plan. And so a lot of my members, they are looking to me to how to make this as easy as possible, as least time consuming as possible. And so that is my approach. So my approach or not, this having 20 cards in your wallet, it's not going to be working in the near future, because they're just not approving you if you've had a bunch of cards in the past. Period. End of story. Doesn't matter what your credit is. It doesn't matter if you don't have any balances on these cards, if you don't have any debt. They're just not approving people for as many cards. So I started to see this about a year ago, again, anecdotally, where we saw Chase tighten up on the business card, small business card applications. That used to be, or I don't know, in the last 4 or 5 years, they would allow you to have pretty much any of their business cards, and some people had multiple of their business cards. Now they're really limiting you to about 2 to 3 Chase business cards, period. So that would be any Chase, like the Chase Southwest business card or the Chase IHG business card, plus all the Chase Inc. cards. Those are all Chase business cards. They seem to be limiting people to about 2 to 3. Um, and again, I'm just seeing more and more people be declined that haven't been before, despite having good credit scores and not owing on the cards. And even if they are approved, um, oftentimes we're seeing they're just getting a very low credit line allotted to them. And that's okay, but if you're trying to meet a minimum spend on a card, let's say the minimum spend is $5,000 and they only gave you a $2,000 credit line, it's a little more challenging. You've got to max out the credit line, pay it in full. Charge more, max out the credit line, pay it in full. So you've got to do that 3 times really before you could meet a $5,000 minimum spend. So if you're seeing these kinds of things on your end, it's because it's a trend. It's happening overall. And again, it's just something that you need to be keeping in the back of your head. So, what does this mean for you, this tightening? What should you do as a result? So, one thing that I've long advocated, I'm going to continue to advocate it because I believe in it, I know it works, is you need a simpler strategy that gets you the points that you require to do what you want to do with travel without having to continue to reopen cards to earn the bonus. Again, I'm the only person I know of that offers a way to fly and travel for free with just a few cards. Um, and so I encourage you, if that sounds appealing, come follow me, come join Families Fly Free. And you can learn more about it at familiesflyfree.com/join. I think it's becoming more important than ever before to in real time know what's happening and have an expert guide you, not AI, because AI gets a lot wrong. Someone who's really doing it themselves in real time, day in and day out, who can give you some advice on what you should be doing. Um, so in addition to trying to stop trying to re-earn the bonus on cards, I would also say just stop trying to open so many cards overall, because what that could do is prevent you from getting the key cards that you need to have in place um, to make a simple system work. You don't want to burn your card applications on travel cards for a hotel card that's going to give you 2 free nights, or an airline card that it's at best going to give you 1 free flight. I mean, that's generally what you can get out of an airline card bonus. Maybe two, right? If you know what you're doing and you can find a good points deal. It's not worth using up one of your card applications and bonuses for something like that. Um, to replace a really good flexible card bonus, in my opinion. So, another thing I want you to be aware of, and I've talked about this before, and again, I'm going to keep talking about this too, because I think people really need to know this and they don't realize it. So, maybe this is the first time you've heard it, and that makes it worth me saying it again. Um, Banks, because of this tightening with card approvals and the number of cards overall they're giving you, that means that they're also paying lower commissions on fewer cards to fewer affiliates. And that means card affiliates. And so I am a card affiliate, but that is not the primary way that my business supports itself. The membership is. And so it never gets in the way of what I'm recommending to you. I'm not recommending any cards to you on this podcast. I'm just telling you um, what's happening and what I think you need to do strategy wise. So, because they're paying fewer, lower commissions, and they've cut the number of affiliates that they're paying commissions to, that means card affiliates need to sell you. They need to convince you to sign up for more cards than ever to make the same income they were making before. I'm just telling you that from the inside. So, don't fall prey to that. You will end up in a situation where you are locked out of getting any more cards or any more travel rewards because you've signed up for cards you don't need and you can't get the cards that you do need. So, another thing when it comes to commissions and different sites and whatever that are pushing cards, and you'll know because it'll say they're an affiliate at the top of the page or in their email, is search engine optimization, which is the ability to come up in the search results of Google when you're searching for a particular term. That has really stopped working for most blogs and websites because Google shifted the way they were doing their rankings. And so, additionally, with AI at the top, most people aren't clicking on the results. They're just reading the AI summary. So, again, the number of people that are landing on the pages of these big points sites that are pushing cards has dropped dramatically. And again, that means they're going to need to sell more to the people they have on their email list. That's one way they can still reach you, right? So be very, very careful about being sold cards that you don't need. I think these are predatory card pushing strategies, and they are not in your best interest. So here's how to distinguish between someone who has your best interest in mind and someone who doesn't, because not everyone out there is engaging, that's an affiliate for cards, is engaging in these practices, but some are. So if you are following a podcast or an email newsletter or a blog or whatever, and they don't have a strategy at all of which cards to open, but rather all cards are equal and they're all important and they've all got a deadline and you should grab this one and this one and this one, run away fast. That is not good. They don't have your best interest in mind. If they do have a strategy and a very short list of cards that they think fits a particular segment, so let's say Disney travelers, for example, and that person has a couple of cards that they really like, that they recommend, they think are good for Disney. Or maybe we've got couples who want to fly first class, and there's two or three, four cards in that mix that the expert recommends. Or maybe it's for small business owners, here's the top couple for those. So it's more likely you can trust those people because they've condensed it to a list of cards that they personally recommend. They're not trying to sell you every card under the sun. Um, and again, because my business is funded differently by my memberships, that's why I always encourage you, if you'd like to support me, to join my membership because it's going to save you loads. And that's your best way to help support me and the podcast and the content that I put out. Um, because my membership is how I finance my business that allows me to, you don't have to worry about me pushing cards on you that I don't recommend. And you can hear in my podcast, there's only a handful of cards that I ever really talk about. And I will flat out tell you which ones I don't like and why. Um, so another thing you need to keep in mind because of this tightening by the banks is to hold on to your key cards because I hate to say it, you might not be able to get them again. So be very, very careful about what you let go and what you keep in your wallet. So I would not be trying to re-earn a bonus on cards right now because you might lose the ability to have that card at all. So I'm hopeful that this tightening will loosen back up because we've definitely seen this cycle in the past and it definitely happened during the pandemic. For example, Chase just completely stopped approving small business cards entirely during the pandemic. So you couldn't get one unless you already had a small business bank account with Chase. And clearly that came back all the way back around where anyone can be eligible for a small business card with any type of side income. Um, of course, they're not approving as many right now, but you can still get them. So I'm hopeful that this will be a cyclical thing, that they're just tightening up right now for whatever reason, and that hopefully it will loosen back up in the future. And then you may be able to re-earn some bonuses if you want to, if that's not too complicated. Again, on my system, it's rare that we do that. Maybe once every 2 to 4 years. You do need to do that once. So I would encourage you to hang on to your key cards, your key flexible cards, especially because you might not be able to get them if you decide to close them. Um, all right, that's number one. That was a long one. Banks are tightening. Number two is luxury lounge access has become harder to get this year. Um, And that's just been a huge change, a huge disappointing change, I will say, for 2025. All said and done, like luxury lounge access is a luxury, right? I'm really trying to show you how to not have to pay for airfare and how to greatly reduce the cost of your accommodations and save on all your other travel expenses. So travel can be affordable for people who are on a budget, like my family who couldn't afford to travel except by car. That's my goal. So if I can open up the world of travel to you without cost being an issue, wonderful. That's a life changer. And then if you can get luxury lounge access, okay, that's the icing on the cake, right? If we can't get that, not the end of the world. We're still able to travel all these amazing places. And to be honest with you, I've been doing this for so long that the lounges to me, I could take it or leave it. Here and there, we've happened upon a really nice one that's really cool and it's a nice experience to have. But again, 90% of the time, they're not great and we don't even want to go in them because there's just really no benefit. But so here's what's happened with luxury lounge access. So the main cards that offered this, so my favorite was Capital One Venture X. At least in the last couple of years, that's been my favorite. And they announced that beginning in February of 2026, only the card holder can access lounges. So that's a real bummer, um, because you would be charged to bring anyone in with you, or you have to expend an exorbitant amount on that card in order to get the privilege of bringing someone in with you. So, not a fan of that. That was a real bummer. Chase Sapphire Reserve um, remains one of the better options to get lounge access. But they raised their annual fee from $550 to $795. So it just became a lot more expensive to get the best luxury lounge access. So they offer a priority pass that does let you bring in two people with you for free. So I think that one stays an option, except that there's that exorbitant annual fee. And do you want to pay that? And we'll talk about this in future episodes, but there is a way that you can offset that annual fee, but boy, is it a pain. It does not fall under the category of simple. So you have to be willing to work at it if you want to keep that access. And you have to be willing to take a hit of $795 on your first statement that you're not going to be able to offset right away, and be able to pay that. That's a lot to put on your first card statement. $95 I can handle, right? But that, and it's not an obvious offset. Again, you really have to work at it. And then the other one we had was Amex Platinum. And there's rumors that its annual fee is going to go up. It's currently $695. That's already ridiculously expensive. And so I'm sure it will go up as well. So we're seeing the cost of luxury lounge access go up and require a lot more work. And with Amex Platinum, you get access to their Centurion lounges, but only the card holder can go in those. And according to the fine print, I just looked it over before this podcast because it's always confusing. With their priority pass, you can bring one guest for free. So again, if you ever have a family, really the reserve is your only option, that is reasonable, unless multiple people in your family hold these expensive cards. Or you reserve will let you add someone as an authorized user, but again, that's very expensive to do as well. It's not another $795, but still. And it has become fun this year. Like a positive with the luxury lounge access was Capital One added their Capital One lounges, which everyone says are fantastic. I still haven't gotten in one. I don't know how, but everywhere we've gone, like we were in JFK, where there's now one, but we were there right before it opened. Um, but my members rave about these. And so that was super exciting that, oh, we were going to have access to these. And then the Chase Sapphire lounges, which are available to reserve holders, or if you have a priority pass with something else, you can go in once a year. Um, and so those are supposed to be really nice. And so that was exciting. But now it seems that we're going to have to pay a high price to get into those lounges. So, in a future episode, I'm going to share my strategy with you on what, at the moment, I think is the best way to get at the luxury lounges if that's important to you. But again, I would suggest putting that further down your list and just focus on your family's ability to travel, fly for free wherever you want. We can definitely accomplish that, and we can get a good number of hotels or vacation rental or whatever timeshare stays for free as well. And that's going to be the biggest life changer. If you can do the luxury lounge here and there, again, icing on the cake. All right, number 3 is things have just gotten a whole lot more complicated in the travel rewards space. So, the prime example of this is all of the changes that we have seen to Southwest this year. Um, they have just made things extremely complicated. And the Chase Sapphire Reserve card is another example of this. Yes, you can offset that annual fee, but it's so many different credits that you have to do, and they are only monthly. And it's extremely complicated to get that credit offset. It's absolutely doable, but it's complicated. And I think they're just hoping that by these complications, people are just going to give up. They're not going to try to figure it out. They're just going to pay the money, and the airline and the bank is going to make more money because of it. So I'm trying to make sure that you don't give up, because it doesn't need to be this complicated, right? I'm giving my members, and I'm trying to give you some idea here of some strategies, some simplification of this whole thing. They're giving you 15, 20 different things you need to know. You really just need to know one or two things, right, to make a lot of this work. So go back and listen to my podcast on Southwest Changes Simplified, because that I really boiled it down for you there. Um, but also know that in real time, we are figuring a lot of this out. So, for example, on my live Q&A call at the end of August in Families Fly Free, and I do that every single month. So members can come on video and ask me a question, or they can post in the Q&A box of Zoom, or they can submit a question ahead of time via email and I'll answer it live. It's like the place to ask me your pressing travel questions, whether it be travel rewards, or where they should travel, or what hotel do I recommend in a particular destination, or how do they get an assigned seat now on Southwest? How do they get their free check bag? We take care of it all on the Q&A. But so members were sharing tips on this Q&A as they're booking things in real time, and they're noticing, oh, this little trick is working. How strange. And offering their thoughts on, for example, how to ensure a companion that you don't have yet. So like, let's say you're earning a companion pass for 2026 and 2027. What are some tips, some ways that you could help ensure a better chance of them sitting next to you? Because they're supposed to be able to sit next to you. But how does that work if you don't add the companion to the flight until next year, but you've already booked the flight, right? There's all these weird little things that we're not going to know exactly until all of this assigned seating actually goes into play in reality, and we start seeing how it works. But they're sharing like, oh, I came up with this idea, and we're like, such a good strategy, right? So this is what's going to simplify things for you, is you're just going to have to know in real time all these changes and what's working and what isn't, if you want this to continue to be easy. We even found like how to use elite perks that people have on Southwest for booking next year, some little tricks and hacks. So there's just continually, we're finding new and different things, particularly with all these changes and the fare types and how to book and how to change, that we're all figuring out and that we're sharing to simplify. How can we simplify? How can we make sure this is as easy as possible? Because these changing strategies and hacks never end, and they never will end, but especially when we're having a year of a lot of changes. Um, and again, I just want to make a comment about AI here. AI can be a great tool. Like, it definitely has its place, but it really falls down on real time and accurate information. I've played around with it quite a bit over the last, I would say, 6 to 9 months. And I have found it helpful when I feed it my information to digest it, to consolidate it, to make it easier to scan, to make it sound better, right? But what it can't do is give me correct real time strategies. I just put in today to just play around with it. I asked it a question about the priority pass, and it literally told me that the Chase Sapphire Reserve Priority Pass would give you restaurant credits. That hasn't happened for several years. It's like, that's a perfect example of, all it's doing is it's looking at the same internet and search results that you would be, and that's where it's pulling its information from. And so Wikipedia is wrong sometimes. Blog posts are outdated. I know some of my blog posts are outdated, for goodness sakes. That's what it's pulling from as accurate information. It's just summarizing it, in a much more readable, understandable way. And so do not count on it to be right, especially with real time changes that are happening. I can't tell you the number of times I see it get things wrong like that. Now, if I input the information and I know that information is correct, and then I have it do something with that information, that's where it's helpful, I think. But be very, very careful relying on it um, to be correct and accurate when it comes to travel. Instead, I highly recommend having a trusted expert to guide you, someone who's out there doing this themselves. And again, our community inside of Families Fly Free is such a great resource of lots of different people being out there doing it in real time and sharing it within a small community, not a TripAdvisor size of tens and hundreds of thousands of people, right? It's a very manageable and very personable. All right. So let's move on from, so things are complicated. We talked about Southwest, we talked about luxury travel cards, making it much more complicated to offset the annual fee. Um, Number four, I want to suggest is that you reconsider using small business cards because they, at the moment, continue to remain a viable option to earn points. And if you really do have a small business like me, for example, um, you can earn so many points by just pushing your business expenses through a small business card and the right one. It's the same thing with the personal cards. You need to put it on the right card. That is so important to continue to have enough points to be able to do what you want to do. But just don't forget about small business cards. So again, they did shut down during COVID and they are now limiting the number you can get, but have a strategy of when and who needs to and how to add these cards into the mix and which ones you should add. If you're limited to just two or three, okay, which ones do you need to make sure you leave space for? Like which ones might you need to open again in a couple of years or just open period in a couple of years? Make sure you leave a spot for that you don't fill them all up again with, these airline and hotel cards that are just giving you, very limited benefits. So again, I, of course, am always advocating flexible small business cards as well. And another way they can be beneficial is many business cards don't count toward the Chase 524 rule, which that rule just says Chase won't approve you for any of their cards if you've opened 5 cards of any type in the last 24 months. And they do exclude Chase, Amex, and Citi business cards. So if you've been locked out of the personal cards because you got 20 cards in your wallet and the banks are saying, no go, friend, anymore, you might still be able to get in a small business card because they don't count as one under that 524 rule. Um, and so if you've got, let's say you're at 4, you can theoretically, depending on how many they want to give you, you could continue opening small business cards without any of them counting as number 5. So they're a little bit more flexible in that regard. That is, if Chase doesn't make changes to that rule. The last thing I would leave you with here is you want to focus on other ways to both maximize your points earning and minimize the points you're spending for every booking. Now, we don't need to get super hung up on that, but wherever you can easily minimize your point spending, do. And I feel like, well, this is important because by doing these two things, maximizing the points that you're earning, minimizing the points that you're spending, you're allowing yourself to book more travel on fewer points. And that's going to become important if you can't keep opening cards to get the bonus, right? And I find most people, most sites, most podcasts, they don't focus at all on how do I pay fewer points for everything. They really focus just on let's keep earning more points by earning bonuses. So if you can at least consider half of the equation there, spending fewer points, and I spend a lot of time inside my fly free formula, teaching you how to pay fewer points for everything because we can oftentimes, take 4 or 5 times the number of trips as someone who doesn't pay attention to that. Because, and particularly Southwest is a great airline where you can do that. You can really, really, really work the points down quite low. Not in every case, but in many cases. And that can save you so many points that allows you to take more trips or maybe use your points for hotel stays instead of needing to use them all for flights, for example. So make sure you have some strategies of how to save and stretch your points to continue to make this work. So some examples here to in terms of maximizing your points earning. If you can't be earning bonuses or you don't want to continue that strategy, focus on when they offer bonus categories. So maybe a card has a promotion where you can earn 5 times points in quarter 3 in, let's just say, warehouse clubs like Costco and Sam's Club. Okay, well, maybe you want to pay attention to that. Make sure that you use that card when you're shopping at Costco for quarter 3. That's going to 5 times your points instead of maybe the 1 point per dollar that you normally get on another card. And in Families Fly Free, we tell you every month what the best cards are to use for different categories of spending. You also want to use flexible cards that earn flexible points that whose points have multiple purposes. So that again, that's something I've long advised. So instead of encouraging you to get airline or hotel specific cards, get cards that earn flexible points, Amex points, Chase points, Capital One miles, City points, your preferred system. Um, Occasionally an airline or a hotel card can be a reason to get those, but they are rare, and I definitely would make them subservient to your flexible cards. Don't burn the few cards you can get with airline, inferior airline and hotel cards. You also want to make sure you're taking advantage, as I've said a bunch here, of real-time hacks and the best strategies that are working right now to pay fewer points for every flight and hotel booking. And that is going to become absolutely critical to success flying and traveling for free here in the near future. And I guarantee you, a lot of people will bow out as this gets more complicated because they think it's too hard. So if you're feeling like that, you just need the simple system. And again, I stay on top of all of that for you. That's my full-time job, right? And then I share it with you in very easily digestible blurbs with my advice um, in simple strategies inside of Families Fly Free. And then here's another thing that a lot of people don't think about. Consider when and if it might make sense to buy airline points or hotel points. That seems counterintuitive, right? We're trying not to spend money. But if you find yourself needing to pay cash for some portion of your travels, like you just don't have enough points to cover it, consider would it be cheaper if you bought the points and booked the room versus just booking the room in cash? And a lot of times points can give you more flexibility as well. So consider that benefit. So compare the cost there, and that might be something we need to start thinking about more. Is if they're not going to allow us to earn the bonuses or get more, then that might be a way to still help reduce the cost of what you're spending and improve your flexibility and your ability to cancel things. So bottom line, things are a changing, and you are likely going to have to shift your strategy to one that involves fewer cards. They're just going to force that on you, I think, because they're just not going to allow it anymore. And you want to shift to a strategy that focuses on paying fewer points for everything and that shows you how to earn more points with the activities that you're already doing. And lastly, of course, staying on top of all the changes, listen to this podcast, and the resulting strategies to keep yourself and your family flying simply and easily so you can keep making all those travel memories together before those kiddos leave home. And now I've got my second one, a senior in high school. So we are about at the point of the last one out of the house. And I cannot tell you how immensely grateful I am that we spent the last 10 years traveling all over the place and that I have been able to give them that experience. It is such a blessing. So I wish you the best for you and your family, that you can continue to do this. I am here for you. Reach out to me if I can answer any questions. My mission is to help as many families as possible be able to travel wherever they want, whenever they want, and make those memories. So thanks for listening to this episode and have a great rest of your week.